All right, hello everyone. So we're gonna continue with this without much introductions and wasting time. My dog is sick, so I have to be available whenever she wants to. Anyway, so last time we stopped by finalizing this model, and the way I'm previewing this, so this is like a series that you can check in the playlist for this video. It's about like introducing you to the Blender basics while doing this generator. So again, just to be at that beginner level, so you have different preview modes in Blender. If you press Z, it's the same thing as you go here. So Z, you have the wireframe, or you have the material preview, or you have the solid preview. And the solid preview, you have the option to choose either studio, which is like the material of this object, which is, I don't think I have anything assigned to it, which is white, or you can select matte cups, and the matte cups are like ready-made shaders with built-in lighting baking into it. So you can choose different matte cups that like preview your object as if it has like some lighting and material to it. This is just like a presentation. It's not, it does not reflect in anything else, and I don't know if you can render it also. Anyway, so for today's stream, I want to UV this. It's a very simple UV process, but it's good to show you like this. I know I did this on previous streams for like different items, but it wasn't part of like this kind of sequence. And anyways, but like we can do that. So first things first, we have to, you can do like pick this UV editing layout here, which is fine, or you can go to the normal layout you were in, and just since you already have like this reference image open, we can just click on this and pick UV editor. And you're not gonna see anything because you have this image here, so we're gonna remove it. Hey Ramraj, how are you, my friend? How are you doing today? My man, joining every day. Are you still in prison, in jail, in Trudge jail? So this is the UV, and for us to see what, like how this UV for object is, we have to go to edit mode by pressing tab and just select everything, and you see like this is the UV for all of this object. And what UV means is it's if you want to take this object, this 3D object, and flatten it out on like a 2D surface, so you can assign texture to it. So these are the UV space of this object. So this is a 3D space where you have 3 axes, and we have X, Y, and Z. A UV space is just a U and a V, which is also an X and a Y if you want. So it's just a 2D Cartesian space where you have, I think, U and V, if I'm not mistaken, or the other way around. I think this is U and this is the V. Oh man, till the 11th. Oh, so they give you like a deadline for this. By the way, I saw your Insta messages, but yesterday was a bit weird. We had a lot of fake airstrikes, or what they call. They broke the sound barriers many times, so it was panic mode. So I didn't have the time. But thank you for this. I'm gonna reply to you soon. All right. So back to this. So there are different ways where you can like. If you want to unwrap this, you can just press U. You can do something called Smart UV Project and just press OK. And this is Blender's best way to unwrap this object in its best way possible. And this could be fine actually. So this is the UV. These are the UV tools, and there are 2 different ways. You either have to like just show you what you have selected. So if you select everything, you can then work on the UV space here, change stuff. Or you can select this UV sync, where you select one thing in the UV and it gets selected as well in here. So you can see these selections. So this is the Smart UV project, which again, if you press all of the faces and you press U, you press Smart UV project. There are different settings, like how much you want the island margins to be. So usually you need some margins. And how, like, where do you want these angles? Like they're doing this on 66 degrees. So whenever you have a change of 66 degrees in faces, they're adding seams and breaking up the model. So I can say like I want this at 90 degrees, and you have different different UV projections. And if you want to check if this is enough, which could be enough actually, but it's a bit, the packing is a bit weird. I'm gonna discuss the packing in a bit. So if you go to the shader editor, and this is the material assigned to this object, which is just called material. I think it's applied to everything. So yeah, everything has this material, probably not this. So let's you know, if you want to check if you have the material applied to everything, you can just make it like a weird color. And here you can go to studio and you can say I want, actually you want to go to material preview. And you'll see that it's not applied to everything. And it's the easiest way to apply to everything is just to select A when you're in object mode and make sure that one of the objects that have the material is the last selected, which is the active, and press Ctrl L and you can say link materials and everything is now the same. All right. So you have 15 objects you can see in here, that 15 objects that are assigned to this material, or like this material is assigned to 15 objects. The other way to say it. Anyways, let's go back pressing Z. We can go back to the solid, and here in solid there is a present, like you have the studio and you can say I want to see textures preview on this. But since we don't have any textures, you can see it's still in gray. So press Shift A and you search for image textures here in the image in the shader editor. And if you click on new, I have to let me pull this up just to make sure that everyone can see. So if you select new, here you have different options. In the blank, you can say I want to see a UV grid, press OK. And without even assigning it to the preview, you're gonna see it in the viewport just because we say that any texture that is selected in the shader editor, I wanna see it previewed in my 3D viewport. So this is what this means. So if you say material, you're not gonna see anything. If you see texture, you're gonna see this. So right now, by making sure if you go to this object, this was unwrapped using this Smart UV project, and you can see that it's not actually good because you can see in here there are a lot of stretching, and here there are a lot of stretching, and here it's not perfect. So, but you can see that it's working fine for some of the surfaces. So this is one way of dealing. If you want just texture paint or do stuff like this, or like you don't really care about the UV space, you can just do a UV Smart. There are different ways also. You can do like a cube projection for everything. Like just press U, do a cube projection, and then you'll see like this is. It looks fine since this is a cube, but there are lots of overlaps. Then you need to do a different packing. So what you can do is press A to select everything. Then go here to UVs. And first thing you want to do is average island scale. So this scales everything to be the proper textile density, which is fine because everything is packed the same way. And you can say pack islands. Let's say for the default settings now. And you can see that it might look fine for most parts, which is okay, but I'm pretty sure there are some weird distortions happening in some places. It looks fine here actually. Let's see. It also it looks fine everywhere actually. But you have a lot of these small faces. Let's check where is this one. So yeah, it had to make all of these as small faces because the box treats everything as a box, so it broke everything as a box projection. All of this is good, that's fine, you can use it, that's okay. But the different ways, the best way to do this is by adding seams and unwrapping ourselves using the unwrap in here. And if you do just the unwrap by itself, you'll see that it's a total mess as a start and everything is distorted. And for this to work, you have actually to select edges. So I'm gonna hide this texture because it's a bit annoying. So let's go for maybe material now. And you have to select where do you want to place your seams. So let me show you one example. So let's say we want this. So a seam is basically where we want to cut the geometry. So if you say we want these to be seams because they make sense naturally because this is where the geometry separate. So you just press U and mark as a seam. And if you pick everything again, press U and unwrap, you're gonna see that we have this cube. It kind of tried to unwrap it separately, but since it's kind of a ring, if you think about it, this is like a closed ring which does like this. So we need to cut it somewhere else for it to work. So we need to cut somewhere in here and press U, mark a seam, press A, U, unwrap, and now you have this flat. And if you go to the texture, you're gonna see that this is working perfectly. At least this face. We're talking about this face. You can also cut it more, you can cut it less. It's up to you where you wanna see your seams. But the process of marking seams, then pressing U, then pressing unwrap is a bit slow. So the way to make it faster, but this is a bit tricky, you have to go to UV. You have to pick live unwrap here. And then I think you have to go somewhere here in the options. I don't know if you can see it, yeah, the options here, and you can gonna pick live unwrap here as well. So now, whenever we mark a seam, let's say you wanna mark a seam, first of all, let me get rid of this, go back to the materials. And I think I wanna go flat for this one. And probably in the viewport, it's a bit dark. So maybe in the color management, instead of AGX, I wanna go for the standard. And in the look, I wanna go for high contrast. Doesn't do anything here. Okay, so probably, anyways, doesn't do anything in the solid view. This is for the rendering previews. But anyways, the flat is already a much better presentation of this. Let's probably pick something else. So maybe, okay. All right, so this is actually a bit better. It was a bit too dark, that's fine. So let's say now we're talking about the live preview now. If you pick, let's say these edges by pressing Alt and Shift, pressing U, mark seam, and now you see that this is automatically being updated right now. So you have inside of here a ring, which is this one, Now if you pick this edge, press U, press unwrap, press U, press mark a seam, it shouldn't be unwrap, U and mark a seam, and you can see that now we have, let me show you this, as now it got unwrapped by itself, okay? Now there is still a lot to do because we have these small faces and all of these like small details happening all over. So now our job is just to go to edge mode here and just mark the seams where we want to mark them. We're trying to unwrap this object in the most optimized way. So I'm gonna mark this door as well. So just pick it from. All right, so now I know why it's dark. I think it's the shadows. Yep, it is the shadows. So if we go back to studio, maybe we can keep cavities. Shadows was messing everything up. All right, so let's pick these faces. Let's press U, mark a seam, then let's press U and mark a seam in here. So this is basically it for the unwrapping process, but you have to go like in each one of these and you have to do it properly. So this is practically that should be a seam in here. I think it can go down like this but not up. So you have to think of it as you're taking a sheet and you're cutting it in some places for you to flatten it out. And if it's in your head physically, you cannot flatten it with these cuts, then it won't work. It will keep doing like these kind of distortions. Now for a geometrical shape like this one, it's kind of easy because you can like imagine it. But when you talk about organic shapes, sometimes it's not even possible to flatten the shapes out. So by pressing Ctrl, sometimes you can extend your selection. Then you can press Shift, Ctrl like this, and it will follow the short. It's called pick the shortest path if you press Ctrl. So it's looking for the shortest path for it to find the link between these two edges. And I think I want to go like this. We can probably include these as well, but sometimes the shortest path that is not the most optimized path for us, so you have to be careful how it behaves. Right, we can go back like this, maybe till here, go back here, and then let's go down like this. Remember, you can always unmark a seam, so you can fix the mistake, so you don't have to worry much if something is not working properly. And this, and this. Now if you check what's happening here and you press U, mark a seam, you're gonna see, at least for this face, if I press L and move it, this is flat enough. Even these faces here, they got flattened out like this because they have a seam in here. So you can just take this cylindrical shape and just like stretch it and flatten it out, and this is what happened in here. Now these are gonna make some issues because I have to mark seams here and then treat the holes separately. But sometimes, like, you can, like, if it's something that's gonna be like a dark hole, you can just ignore it. Even the distortion here is not gonna matter. But if you check the texture now, you can see that the texture is wrapping properly on all the sides here and here. And you don't have to worry much about packing, because in the end there's a way to pack everything automatically. You can even put them outside if they are bothering you. So press L, move it outside. There's a single vertex in here. This is something that you always want to see. That's fine. Let's make sure. Where is this? So these are these guys. If you press Shift H, so probably something in my model. I'm gonna press Alt H to bring everything back. Press A on the vertices. So 1, A, M by distance. I'm merging. So I merged these 4 vertices, and they disappeared. I think they were like faces that were need merging. So the nice thing about Blender is that you can merge and you can create edges even if you unwrap the geometry, and it still works. That usually not the case with some other tools. Anyways, we were saying that here you can see actually that this is not wrapping properly because it's not. This is not the proper way. This is not the proper representation of this geometry if you want to flatten this out. So just for the sake of showing you, you can just pick these edges. Although, like, in my practical use cases, I won't do this. I'll just keep it. That's fine. Having distortions here is not a big deal, so you can just press U and then mark a seam in here. So whenever you mark a seam, it unwraps everything. So this is something that you have to also consider. So if you have something that you've done custom made here, like let's say you have moved some vertices just to fix your geometry or to fix like your UVs, you need to right click and you need to pin it, because whenever you unwrap something here, or like because you have the live preview unwrapping happening, it's gonna unwrap everything again and it's gonna remove your work. So now, as you can see, we have this, all of this presented as like this, these two circles or whatever, cylinders. But what we need to do is also to mark seams in here. So you mark some seams, and then of course, because this is a ring, then we need to mark seams here so we can cut that ring. So if you cut that ring, and then you can flatten it out. So you and mark that seam. Right. So like even these doesn't really matter. You can say, okay, I'm gonna show you just for the sake of what I was telling you before. So if let's say I don't like this kind of distortion happening in here, and this is happening for a reason, which is fine, but let's say that you don't want it for some reason. So if you pick these edges, and then let's say you wanna, all right, so first thing first, if you have the sync, UV sync selected, what's gonna happen is gonna select these vertex and the vertex that is attached to it. So it is, I think, So let's say this one, or let's say this is an edge. Let's say it's a vertex. So this vertex is attached to two edges. So and this is why you see that it has two highlights in here. So you need, if you don't want to do that, if you just want to flatten this out without moving the other vertices, you want to turn off the UV sync. Then you have to select everything. So when you select everything, it's now previewed in the viewport. But now what you can do is that you can select only one side. Now you can scale this on the Y by 0. And now you have flattening this out. But if for some reason now, I'm gonna go back to UV sync, and let's say I mark the seam here, it's gonna go back to the previous shape because it unwrapped everything back again. And this is where I was telling you. So let's do this again. I'm gonna turn off the UV sync, select everything. Now I'm gonna scale back again on Y by 0. So if you wanna keep this without any changes, you have to select it, right click, pin it. So now it's pinned. And now if I go in here and I press, let me pick everything, press U, and if I want to clear that seam, you can see that, okay, so it overlapped on top of each other, but practically the pinned one did not change. I'm gonna unpin it for now because it doesn't, this is just a preview for you guys, but it doesn't really matter for me. That's a very small scale item. Let's do this other side. So let's go back to material because the texture is a bit overwhelming. So I'm gonna do the other edge, which is the same thing. So I'm just gonna repeat it just for us to see. So now if we press Alt, Shift Alt, it kind of loops or rings or whatever. So Shift Alt here. Here it's just Shift selection. Now if I press Control towards this, it's gonna find the shortest path to this one. If I press Control here, that's fine. Then Shift here. Then Control towards this. No, so it's Shift, and now Control. So I have to mix between Shift selection, which is additional selection or adding to the selection, and Control selection, which is finding the shortest path. But sometimes it goes in a different directions for the shortest path. Sometimes the shortest path, it's not the path we need. This is what I want to say. Okay, now we can control this selection and go back here, and probably Alt Shift will do the job here. You mark the seam, and forget about these are some different places. So it's this one which is looking fine. It's synced, so this is why we have this messed up. All right, next, now we have these faces. Let's go back to texture. So now we have these faces done. Inside this is done. Let's check the bottom. The bottom is done. I think I want to separate the bottom by itself because this is looking nice and it's not distorted and everything, but right now you have like the majority of the real estate of this sheet, which is like, let's say this is 1000 by 1000 pixels, and this is the body of the generator, and it's occupying just this part. Let me move it up. So this is not a very wise way to use the UV sheets or the textures. Like you're gonna use maybe like 10% of the width and like of course of all the height of this sheet, which is not very convenient. So let's add a seam here. So you mark a seam and you're gonna see like this just scaled much better. So what are these? I think these are the joints inside here, and this is because, so we can actually just select them and we can see where these are. So these are these guys, these small guys, plus the joints inside of here, which are not really important, but we have to unwrap them just because they occupy space. Or we can just like scale the whole thing into like a small face and just put them in the corner, and later on, just when we're texturing, just paint them in black so they are actually gaps. But let's first finalize these guys. So the question is, how do you want to do this? We can do, okay, so we can do these faces separately, of course. So we can do this, Shift Alt. And of course, whatever is happening here, probably the same thing with this guy, but this can actually go backwards like this. So it can be flattened out like this. And of course, we need to remove the cylinder out of it. And this cut in the cylinder, that's fine because a cylinder has to be cut in the middle and opened as well. Actually, this can be removed and we can just extend this selection like this. Yep, probably we can do that. So let's just mark seams, and it's somewhere in here. But I was thinking about something. We can actually clear the seams, at least from this guy. Clear the seam. And what will this do is create this kind of shape in here. I don't know if you can see it. Yes, you can. So it's flattening it out and then opening this just like a card box. And this is like just the bottom part. And actually we can do the same thing with this. We can clear the seam here and we can add seams here. So where is this guy? It's here. So what a seam is, like a cut. So if you want to add like a tile texture, you can see that if you have a seam in here, you're gonna have a discontinuity in your texture. If something like it's a checker or like a pattern that is repetitive. But since this is a very small object, it's far away. Probably I'm not gonna use like a procedural texturing here. I'm just gonna paint it or just use something flat. That's fine for me actually. So I'm happy with this result. It looks good. Even these faces, I think they're working fine. They're somewhere in here. I don't know what's this, but at least these guys are good. All right, so let's do the same thing for the all four of them, and we can move on to the next thing. So let's repeat it. Let's go back to material just to see better. Press period on the num lock so we can zoom in. Now if you press shift here, so we said we don't want this. We can grab this guy. This guy like this and like this. Mark a seam. And it's still probably connected somewhere. Oh, so you have the circles in here. We need to remove them. Mark a seam like this. So this is this one. It worked just fine. And now we have to do the other part, which is this one. Like this. And then we can add the seam in the middle. We can mark a seam here. Actually, this, the one that I told you, I don't know what it is. These are the inside of this Boolean shape. All right, let's just finalize everything. Actually, I can delete it and like mirror it, and then I can just unpack everything. But why the headache? Let's just take some time in doing all of this. There are better ways. There are more optimized ways. Of course, there are different ways to do things. But as long as your way work, you're fine. You shouldn't worry much about it. I think this is it for this one. It's not it. We still need to do one more cut, which is here. Yeah, it's working fine. So you can see before doing that cut, it was a bit messy in here. And let's do the last one. Just pick any edge, press period on the num lock. And now we just need to cut here. We need to cut this part, not all of this, of course, till here. Then this cylinder, the inside of it, I'm cutting this and these. And this guy here. Yep. Probably that's everything. That's not everything. I forgot these two edges. Yep. So now it's looking fine. So what we have in this, I just want to see if I can find it somewhere. So yeah. So this is just one surface flattened out, and then this is also one surface flattened out like this. So if you wanna like print this on a cardboard and like fold it, you're gonna end up, if you fold this 2D shape, you're gonna end up with this 3D shape. This is the whole concept of UV mapping. All right, let's check what else do we still have from this object. And I think we're almost done. We just need to do the gaps. So the gap is just a ring. It's actually multiple rings. But you know what? Let me see. If this is fine and this is done. So probably what I want to do now is just grab these faces. And I just want to like, there is no need for these guys to occupy any space in the textures. In my texture, these can be like just a small dot where everything is black. So we don't need to waste too much space on them. You can actually just do a very smart unwrap on them just to make them a bit flatter. And we can just scale them and put them on the side for now. So what I want to do to finalize this, like if you want tutorial or like walkthrough, I'm gonna pick all of these guys. I'm gonna go to UVs. I'm gonna average island scale just to make sure that everything is not, I didn't scale anything, so the scale should be fine. I just wanna double check what is this first and where it is. Yeah, it's here, so that's fine. The next thing that we want to do is press N. There is something, it's an add-on. If you go to edit, preferences, there's an add-on called Magic UV. It ships with Blender, so there's nothing to be paid or nothing to be downloaded. Just install it. Here in the UV manipulation, there's a pack UV extension. And you can just pack. And I'm gonna show you what's happening now. So here, the margin, there are no margins. Everything is just stuck to each other, which isn't the best case. So if you just do 0.001 for margins, 0.001, or maybe it's too small, 0.01. Let's go for 0.1. That's too much, 0.05 probably. So it's packing everything in a way, the best optimized way to keep everything the same textile density while trying to take advantage of the whole real estate of this flat 2D plane, which we're gonna texture on. All right, so I'm gonna save, I'm gonna unhide. So since this is a geometrical object, I'm not gonna bore you in this stream by like doing everything on stream, but these are just the ideas of how we unwrap. So this is how we turned this 3D object into flat 2D objects. And actually, I still need to just bring back these guys. And just like I said, I need, actually they're fine. I need to pack them somewhere where I can just paint them all in black and just can get rid of them. And this is it. That's basically how we unwrap. I'm not gonna move them because they are packed in a space that is clear for me. I can just go to Photoshop, select this space, fill it with black, and this is done. Anyway, it's the same process everywhere. This is the same thing. This is the same thing. It's gonna be not that complicated. Like even for something like this, it's just about picking where you want your themes to be, just mark them and they're gonna unfold in a certain way, and you can move on. There are some simple, more advanced tricks. There are some add-ons that I don't really know how to use actually right now. They are paid add-ons, so I'm trying to stay with vanilla Blender for everything. And that's it. Thank you for joining. It's a short one today. And if you have any question, please leave a comment or like a like or subscribe, whatever whatever YouTuber has to ask for. Thank you very much, guys.